Hey friends, welcome back. Imagine two people sitting at home trying to decide where to go for dinner. You might have seen this before. The husband says, I don't care, you choose. The wife says, no, really, whatever you want. No, no, I want you to pick. Well, I don't want to pick, I want to do what you want. 5 minutes later, neither person has gotten what they wanted, and neither person has volunteered what they wanted. And somehow, they're both irritated. It's almost funny, but C.S. Lewis saw something spiritually dangerous hiding underneath it. Because sometimes what looks like selflessness isn't actually love. And in letter 26 of the Screwtape Letters, Screwtape teaches Wormwood how to turn two people sacrificing for each other into two people resenting each other. Let's get into it. Screwtape begins with courtship, and his strategy is fascinating. He doesn't necessarily want the patient's relationship to fall apart, at least not yet. In fact, Screwtape sees an opportunity in how happy they are. During courtship, people naturally want to please each other. They overlook annoyances, they make sacrifices, they give up preferences, they enjoy doing things for the other person. And that's beautiful. But Screwtape sees an angle to exploit, because he wants them to confuse the emotional excitement of being in love with genuine Christian charity. As long as they're enchanted with each other, sacrifice feels easy. So Screwtape says, perfect. Teach them to expect that from each other forever. Let today's spontaneous sacrifice become tomorrow's expectation, because eventually the enchantment changes. The emotional resources that made sacrifice effortless won't always be there. And then they'll discover something important, that they haven't actually learned how to love each other when love becomes difficult. This connects directly with what Lewis has been telling us in the previous letters. Romantic love is good, affection is good, attraction is good, but none of them are the same thing as charity. Charity is something deeper. Charity seeks the actual good of another person, and that's why Lewis draws a vital distinction. The feelings of courtship may naturally produce behavior that looks like charity, but similar behavior doesn't necessarily mean that the heart has developed the virtue behind it. Anyone can be patient when patience is easy. Anyone can sacrifice when sacrifice feels good. The test comes when it doesn't. When you're tired, when you're annoyed, when you disagree, when you've been married for years instead of dating for months. That's when love moves from emotion into faithfulness. And Screwtape wants the couple to enter marriage believing they already possess a virtue that they've never actually had to develop. Then Lewis introduces the central idea of the letter. Screwtape says hell has accomplished something remarkable. They've taken the Christian virtue of charity and replaced it with something that sounds almost identical: unselfishness. At first, those sound like the same thing, but Lewis sees a crucial difference. Charity asks, what would genuinely be good for this person? Unselfishness can become, how much can I deny myself? And those motivations are not necessarily the same. Screwtape wants someone to surrender a benefit, not because giving it away will genuinely bless another person, but because surrendering it allows him to think, look how unselfish I am. Now the focus isn't actually on the other person, it's still on me. My sacrifice, my virtue, my goodness, my unselfishness. We've somehow managed to make self-denial self-centered, and that's exactly the kind of contradiction Screwtape loves. Lewis then makes an observation about the way men think versus the way women do. He says they often understood unselfishness differently. Generally speaking, the woman thought being unselfish meant taking trouble for other people, doing things for them, serving them, anticipating their needs. The man tended to think being unselfish meant not causing trouble for other people, leaving them alone, not imposing, not interfering. And you can immediately see the problem. One person says, if you loved me, you'd do more for me. The other says, if you loved me, you'd stop doing things I never asked you to do. Both believe they're being considerate, and both think the other person is being selfish. Lewis's example may not describe every man or every woman today, but the principle absolutely survives. We often assume that other people define love the same way we do. We serve people the way we want to be served, and we sacrifice the way that we think sacrifice should look. And then, when they don't appreciate it, we become offended. Sometimes the problem isn't that nobody is trying to love, it's that nobody has stopped long enough to understand how the other person actually receives love. Now Screwtape takes it one step further. While dating, both people happily give things up for one another. That's not the problem. The problem begins when those voluntary sacrifices quietly become rules, expectations. And because both people think being unselfish means surrendering their own preference, something ridiculous begins happening. Neither person will admit what they actually want. What restaurant do you want? Whatever you want. No, I want whatever you want. But I asked you, and I'm telling you I don't care. Except they do care. And eventually they do something, but it's not what either of them wanted to do. Now both people have sacrificed, and both people feel righteous because of it, but underneath that righteousness something else is growing. Resentment. I gave that up for you. And silently we begin keeping score. Screwtape names this the generous conflict illusion. Imagine a family trying to decide what they're going to do on a Saturday. One person says, I'd really like to go swimming, but if everyone else wants to go for a bike ride, that's fine. I'll give up swimming. Now someone else thinks, well, I can't let them give up what they want just for us. That would be selfish. We should go swimming. And that's where something strange begins to happen. The question is no longer, what would everyone enjoy doing? Instead, it becomes, who's willing to sacrifice the most? Because once the first person announces their sacrifice, everyone else feels pressure to make one too. If I accept your sacrifice, I might look selfish. But if I refuse your sacrifice and insist on giving up what I want, now I'm being unselfish too. So someone says, no, we're going swimming. And the first person responds, no, I already told you I'm perfectly happy going for a bike ride. But you wanted to swim. Yes, but I'm willing to give that up. Well, I'm willing to give up the bike ride. And suddenly, people are arguing over who gets to sacrifice. Nobody will simply admit what they want. Nobody wants to appear selfish. And eventually, everyone becomes frustrated. And the brilliant part of Screwtape's strategy is that everyone involved can walk away believing, I was the one trying to be unselfish. If everyone had simply been honest, like I'd rather swim, or I'd rather ride bikes, or I really don't care either way, they could have discussed it, compromised, taken turns, or simply made a decision. And underneath all this, there's a scorecard. We may never say it out loud, but we're keeping track. I gave this up for you. I did that for you. I went where you wanted. I changed my plans. I made the sacrifice, and every sacrifice becomes another deposit into an invisible account. Eventually, we expect repayment, preferential treatment, recognition, gratitude, and when it doesn't come, we become bitter. That's not charity, because genuine charity doesn't manipulate someone with the memory of what we've done for them. Love doesn't keep score, but self-conscious unselfishness does. And that's the irony. The more obsessed I become with how unselfish I've been, the more selfish I can actually become. Lewis gives us a painfully funny line near the end of the letter. He describes the sort of person about whom people say, she lives for others. You can always tell who the others are by their hunted expression. That's funny because we immediately recognize the type. Someone can spend their entire life helping everyone around them while making everyone around them miserable. Every favor carries an obligation. Every sacrifice creates guilt. Every act of service comes with an expectation. You know how much I've done for you? And now service isn't really a gift, it's leverage. This is why charity must be concerned with the actual good of the other person, not merely with our need to feel sacrificial. Sometimes genuine love serves, sometimes genuine love gives something up, sometimes genuine love leaves someone alone. Sometimes genuine love simply asks, what would actually bless you? This is where Lewis brings everything together. Screwtape wants this couple never to notice what's happening, because if they do, they might discover something dangerous to hell. They might realize that romantic love isn't enough. They need charity. And charity hasn't been fully developed yet. No external rule can manufacture it. You can't create genuine love simply by saying, always sacrifice, because sacrifice itself can become selfish. What they need is something deeper: humility, honesty, patience, grace, and genuine concern for the good of the other person. Sometimes the loving thing is simply to tell the truth. What do you actually want? I'd really like to eat Italian tonight. Great. I'd rather have Mexican. Let's figure it out. No manipulation, no martyrdom, no secret scorecard, no resentment disguised as sacrifice. Just two people honestly trying to love one another. Letter 26 exposes one of the strangest counterfeits we've encountered in this series. Selfishness disguised as unselfishness. The enemy can take something as beautiful as sacrifice and twist it until our sacrifice becomes another way of focusing on ourselves. How much have I given? How much have I sacrificed? Why doesn't anyone appreciate me? But charity asks a different question, not how much can I give up, but how can I genuinely seek the good of this person? Because love isn't a competition over who sacrifices more. Love isn't keeping score. And love doesn't need everyone else to notice how loving we've been. Real charity turns our attention away from ourselves and toward the person God has placed in front of us. And maybe that's the simplest test of all. When I sacrifice for someone, am I giving them a gift, or am I quietly creating a debt? Next week we'll continue into letter 27, where we'll learn a fascinating lesson on how the enemy can use unanswered prayers and answered prayers to convince us that prayer is meaningless. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next Friday.